Welcome to Teachers Talking Teaching, where we celebrate and elevate the art of teaching.
We have a wonderful guest today. Amy Otteman-Freeman is here to continue our series on literacy. And Amy, you've been an English teacher, high school English teacher for many years now. Tell us about your journey to being an English teacher.
Many years. This is my 30th year of teaching.
Congratulations.
You'd never know it till look back. I am from a small town in southeastern Colorado, and I grew up in a family of educators. And the family joke is that insanity runs in our family because we all teach. But everybody in my family, with the exception of my stepfather, have been elementary educators. And I love little kids, but that many little kids was never for me, and I knew that early on. I was one of those kids who had the stuffed animal school in the basement, where we had all the animals in rows and worksheets to teach them. And then when I hit high school, I decided I didn't want anything to do with education. I mean, other than my own, obviously, but I thought about being a geneticist. And I went through the phase that most high school seniors go through of being a psychologist because they don't know what else they want to be. Interesting field, but also, not knowing much about it. And then I hit probably January my senior year, and I realized that I actually did want to teach. I loved learning, and I loved just the idea of sharing things that I was passionate about with kiddos. I went to college as a history major, not an English major, and really I love history. It's just one of my great passions, and that was kind of the beginning. And then I started talking to, again, small town, I started talking to some of my former history teachers, and they let me know that if you want to teach history, and this is of course 30 years ago, if you want to teach history, probably should be a coach. And I fall over my own feet and have no athletic ability whatsoever. So I thought, okay, all right, I'm going to have to punt. I love that I got an athletic pun in there. Yay. And I switched. My minor at the time was English, and I switched and I flipped it. And so I became a history minor and an English major. And it was so the right fit for me. It just was where I belong. And then I got my master's in humanities later on. And so it was a really nice way to connect everything. The other, funny thing about being young is that you say things like, I'm never coming back to my hometown. And when I graduated, that was the only job that was available. So I moved back home. But it was an amazing experience because I knew the staff, which was great. And once I got over calling the teachers by their first names instead of you're calling them, Mrs. Blevins, or calling them Kathy instead of Mrs. Blevins or whatever. It was really great. I had so many opportunities as a young teacher that I never would have had in a large district. At the time, they didn't have an AP curriculum, and so I got to help start the AP curriculum down there. And so I taught down there for 5 years, and then I moved to Fort Collins. I actually was planning on not teaching and just pursuing my master's, and then actually decided that I really liked having food on my table and being able to pay rent. And so I thought, okay, I'll teach at the same time. So I went to school part-time, and then my master's school part-time, and then I taught full-time where I work now. And I've been there for 25 years, which it's a great place, and I love it. And it's seen a lot of changes, and so has education, but it's been a really fun journey for me.
So you've taught English, obviously.
Yes.
You've taught AP English, different classes.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to dabble in other things too, or do you spend, what classes are you spending most of your time teaching now, especially?
I really, my entire career, have worked with sophomores and seniors. I think there was 1 year where I taught juniors, and that's English. At the high school level, that's American literature. And I'm a little bit of a British literature snob, and I struggle with American literature, so that was a short year. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So, and freshmen are lovely, but they're a little energetic for me, so I'm better suited to sophomores. I've worked. I do our regular level classes, World Lit and Comp, with regular level sophomores. I've done that since I started teaching, and then I also teach what used to be called the pre-AP World Lit Comp class at the 10th grade. We now call it college prep. And then I taught British literature for a lot of years, and then just recently, with the retirement of one of our department chairs, took over the AP Literature and Composition curriculum. This is my 7th year of teaching that.
Yeah. And I know you and I met through the gifted and talented world
Yes,
for a while.
yeah.
So do you still do that, or is that kind of a side gig? Yeah.
Yeah, so that is, I'm lucky because we are on a 4x4 block, and then so I can do 2 classes a day, and then I have 1 period for gifted and talented work, and then I have my planning period, and it's been an amazing extension of what I do in the classroom. I get to work with kids in class, but then I also get to do programming outside of class at lunch. We have a book group, so I get to just kind of geek out about literature with people who also get excited about it too. So,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you said that, little kids, no thank you. But
I love my own kids. I feel like I need to say that.
You know what? I think all of us, as we go through, becoming an educator, we kind of find our niche spot of like the age group that's, just right for us. So tell us a little bit about like what it's like to work with high school kids.
I really love it. I guess I've kind of generalized things a little bit. With littles, you're teaching them how to learn, and with middle school, you're just kind of helping them.
Herding cats.
Yeah. I was trying to be tactful. And then at the collegiate level, it's just about disseminating information. And there's not. I actually wanted to be a college professor. I made that fateful phone call to my mother in my junior year and said, I'm going to keep going to school and I'm going to be a college professor. And she thought, I have another child who's getting ready to go to college, and what are you doing? And eventually I decided, again, that I didn't want to be poor, and I would work for a while. And I love high school. You have a relationship with the kids. They're almost adults, but not quite there. And they're just, the energy is amazing. And it's kept me young all of these years, which I really love. And they're curious. You can see the growth happen in such an amazing way. We'll come in and we'll start with a timed right at the beginning of the semester, and then at the end of the semester we always go back and look at that, and so you can see how much they change, how much they grow. You can see curiosity blooming in different ways with them, which it's an amazing thing, and I love it. I really do.
I'm assuming you probably end up too with kids who are in your sophomore class, and then you turn around and see them as seniors, so to get to see them 2 years later, there's probably some significant growth that happens there.
It's and what's fascinating about high school is that they go through similar mental development as little children. So a sophomore is very similar to a 3-year-old, and I didn't realize that until I had a 3-year-old, and I was talking to parents, and they'd say, "Oh my gosh, this is what's going on at home," and I thought, "Oh, wow." And then seniors are very similar to kindergartners, where they're I'll do it myself, and so it's fun to see them mature, and when they're not your own children, you're a little bit more distanced from that, so you get to have the more fun part of that. With my seniors that I teach in the spring, everybody's close to graduation, and so we have a discussion topic almost every day of, okay, crazy things your parents have done because you're leaving home, and so we share that. So it's kind of, and I don't know what my own child's going to be saying in this kind of conversation, but
I'm sure his friends will tell you what.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting, like having your own children at the same school that you do. And so, having those relationships with kids who are friends of your children, and then you have them in class, and, it's kind of a neat sort of community. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect of being a teacher and having that kind of parent and teacher community?
It's amazing and weird at the same time. I mean, your universes literally start colliding. And I always, for years, kept my family here and my work here. And then as my kids started to grow, it became, I have known you since you were 3. And, and then what's adorable is with my hyphenated last name, a lot of my kiddos' friends would call me Mrs. Freeman, and they'd be like, no, that's not her name. Her name's Ms. Otteman. So that's interesting. But it's been fun and a little awkward at times as well, because you have, people that your children are dating in your classes, and you know, there's definitely potential for some awkward moments. but it's also, you get to see a different side of your kids because you see them in the academic environment. You get to see their friends grow and change, and you know, at graduation, my favorite moment is watching the kids step off the stage with their diploma. And you know, I always think I played a small part in some of those kids' lives. And with my son's graduating this year, and this is going to be a moment where I watch lots of those kids, and I think, oh my goodness, that's like my child kind of that's walking across the stage. And so it's a very poignant thing, and it's a really amazing thing. I don't know what my kids would say. I think the oldest has enjoyed it. The youngest will be at my school next year. But they've grown up at my school, and you know, they've gone to the plays, they've gone to the athletic events, and so it's really their home, their second home. And so it's a comforting thing, I think, for them to know a lot of the teachers that they've had, and to have many parents and many eyes around the school. That's good on a lot of levels. Where you've got a lot of people watching out for your kiddos, and it's comforting, I guess, as a teacher and a parent. So
one of the cool things about being an educator is seeing, and particularly at your level, is seeing that kind of next step, those transition moments for a child and you know, now an adult, going from, you know, having this structure and this sort of, you know, environment of school to now going into something, you know, different that isn't this, you know, 13 years of getting up and living by the bell and, you know, making sure you've got your homework done. Can you talk about how you maybe sort of start to plant those seeds for those seniors about you're making this transition, and here's some things you need to know?
Sure. I actually start that with my sophomores. I tell students and parents that high school is practice for what comes after. And so this is the time to learn how to advocate for yourself. And you're doing it in a safe environment where if you need some extra adult support, you know, people can step in. But I at the sophomore level, encourage them to start coming to see me instead of just sending the email. And, you know, learning how to study and learning how to be students. Even middle school, I think, is a beginning of that, because you're learning how to be a student for the beginning stages there, and then you move into that in high school. The other thing that I try really hard to do is to have students see themselves as learners. This is such a gross metaphor, but it really works. I tell them I'm not the mama bird who's just going to vomit information into your mouth and you just open your mouth, and it really grosses them out when I say that, but it's true. I want it to be a partnership. I want it to be them taking ownership of what they're learning and understanding the process. And so that's a big push for me. The other thing that I really work on with my seniors is, here's a problem. Okay, how are we going to handle that? You know, what are your steps? What are your problem solving steps? So when we talk about how they've grown as a writer, I do a lot of metacognition with writing. And so one of the first things I ask them is, when you go to college, what will you do if you're struggling with writing? How will you fix that? And we talk about that process in college. I also, even if I have students who are not necessarily college bound, I always talk to them about why limit yourself. You know, have the possibility, have the chance, even if you don't think it's going to happen. And that's great, because there's a lot of amazing things to do. But, you know, someday when you're 30, you may decide that you want to go back and get an associate's degree, or you want to get a 4-year degree, and you want to have some of the foundations in place so that you can do that. So I guess just the preparation piece and kind of the separation piece of helping them see themselves as autonomous is really important to me as a teacher.
Well, and I think we know that writing is an important skill no matter what your future holds.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I always tell my engineer students, I want you to be a unicorn, an engineer who can write well. That's what we're going for. So.
Oh, and the world needs that.
They do, yeah. Well, and being able to express yourself in an articulate manner is great. And there's so many things pushing back against that with texting and email, and we're just not the same in the way that we write. My kids laugh at me because I tell them about writing letters to my friends when I was young.
Yeah.
Such a foreign concept. Why didn't you just send an email? And then I have to say, well, it didn't exist.
I always tell the kids I'm older than Google. And they're like, what? I'm like, Google's not really that old, guys. So
and then they look at you with
new
eyes. I call it the Google in my classes. It's like the Oracle to the Greeks, it's the Google. So.
Yeah, the all-knowing, all-seeing who tells you how the world works.
Although I'm not going to lie, it was really helpful when my kids were doing math in school. What is this?
Help me Google.
Well, Amy, we look forward to digging more into English teaching and writing and how you build relationships with kids, all that good stuff next week. So thank you for sharing your origin story with us, and we'll dig in more next week.
Great.
If you liked what you heard today, go to our Facebook page and like and subscribe. You can also go to YouTube and join our YouTube channel, as well as listen to us on your favorite podcasting app.